Hello, welcome to McBoss Capital channel. My name is Michael Chu. This is US stock market recap video for the week ending June 5th, 2026. We've entered the month of June. We got 2 months, April and May, a really good rally. Here's Nasdaq Composite on the weekly chart here. We rise for many weeks here, but we did suffer this week very bad. You can see the drop here, 4.68% down. Yeah, so we're heading, possibly towards the red line here, which is the 10-week moving average. On the daily chart, you can see here, it's actually the sell-off begins on Wednesday, and we close at the low. And then on Thursday, we did undercut the green line, which is 10-day moving average, but we did bounce back to try to come back to the 10-day. And then on Friday, it just basically gave up, gap down, and from there, it just keep going down. It never really even tried to recover, and that's the really negative thing. And you can also see that on the daily chart, it did undercut the previous low as well. So that is also very bad because that probably shaken out a lot of people who have stops, near that zone there. So the low here was 25,701, and the low here was 25,648, and but it did close 25,709. So again, it did close near the bottom of the range. So the market is pulling back pretty severely right now. And again, we're seeing it pretty much very far below the 21 day. Are we going to see a bounce here? Possible, because we are quite under the green line right now and also the 21 day. So it won't be surprising to see some sort of a bounce here just to come back to this downtrend line right now, which is very steep, okay? And so, if we do come back to there, watch how it reacts near the moving average as they turn. So those moving averages might start to turn down, or that's one scenario. Obviously, it can fall straight to the red line here as well. That is also possible because that would definitely trigger a lot of panic sell-off as this gets more severe, and we could have a very short correction here that is very fast. I believe we are down over 5.8% right now, something like that. So from the top, so it's possible that it can go all the way to the red line, and then we'll see what happens. Again, many things can happen. So what sparked this sell-off? It could be many things. We have. Um, Before we talk about that, like there's all this movement here on this rally, which is like stairs up, as they go up. Momentum traders like myself, I tend to move my stop up as it goes, and when it hit that stop, a lot of people are setting the stops at near the same level, and usually at the 10-day or somewhere even higher. And when they undercut that 10-day, especially this is the second time now, then a lot of people wants to get out because and on Friday morning, that's how it started. It kind of came down, and because this is the second time it undercut the 10-day, Thursday was the first time, and then Friday, we gapped down. So that just, a very bearish signal. And so a lot of people just want to get out, especially if you have good profit in some of the high-flying tech stocks. They're ups, significantly. So, again, many of them dropped double digits on Friday. So it's pretty common for people to take profit. And so now it's starting to go down. Is it going to fall further? Oh yeah, there's a high chance that it can fall further just because of how far this rally has come. But can we also bounce here? Sure, again. But I think at least short term, I'm watching for the bounce, how strong the bounce is. But I would stay out of this market for now. Of course, some people want to try to pick the bottom, but that's not my strategy. I don't really try to pick the bottom unless it's close to a key moving average, which is not right now. We undercut the 21 day, like I said, it could fall all the way to 50-day. Uh, you know, uh, but yeah, sure, there's a chance that it can bounce from here. But let's say I'd rather see how the bounce deal with, this 21 day might turn, the 10-day might turn, and then when they turn, start to come down. If the index does come back to it, or even near it, we'll see how it reacts near that level. Here's the S&P, also a sharp down week here, 2.5%. Also getting heading towards the red line here. This is the daily chart. So we also, this one hasn't undercut this previous pullback here, but very close to it. Again, we below the pink line. It's possible for it to bounce back to the pink line and see what happens next, or it could go down further. So so here's Dow Jones Industrial Average. It actually hit a new high this week. You can see here, and it did reverse, but it's only down 0.3% for the week, and that is quite incredible. So it has done really well this week compared to the other index. And look at Dow Jones on the daily chart here. We did hit new high on Thursday. On Wednesday, we actually pulled back to the 10-day and bounced off. So that was a very strong move there. From the 10-day all the way to making new high. But on Friday, we give back most of the gains here, down 1.3%. So we're back at the 10-day. So this, at least at the 10-day, it's not below the 10-day, it's not below the 21-day. So this is acting a lot stronger, and you can see the relative strength line has shot up pretty significant this week here compared to S&P. Here's Russell also giving back 2.94%, also heading slowly towards the red line here. Now, this one has been weaker, as you can see in the last 7 sessions here. It hasn't really done much. On Thursday, it tried to come out again, getting close to that high, but on Friday, it suffered a big drop, just like other indexes. And now we are below the 21-day. This is still above the previous pullback here. So the 50-day has come back quite a bit. So this one may, who knows again. So some of this index, who knows, they usually go the same way. So if they do challenge the 50-day, that is not a surprise, because that will shake a lot of people out, and we'll see what happens then. Or you could bounce here in the short term here and challenge the short term medium, the 10-day and 21-day here as well. Let's transition to what happened on Friday. We have the job numbers out, added 172,000 in May. It is way above expectation, and also have employment rate now at 4.3%. And you can see the last 3 months, like they're pretty high, over 172,000, and hourly earnings, it didn't really, it just dropped a little bit, I think. But overall, this didn't help the market at all. Even though it was stronger than expected. In fact, it somehow, some people think it create risk of more rate hikes, in the future. So that is another, and from that sense, it's negative. For the IB50 ETF here, it was down 3.9%. It actually make a new high this week, and then it kind of dropped. And again, we're coming close to that red line there on the daily chart. Yeah, you can see Thursday actually make a new high, surprisingly. So, but Friday it gave back all that gains, down 7.4%. So that was huge drop there, from new high to, the low here. So that is the negative part, right? And we're close to the red line here, which is 50-day moving average. So it might test that line. So with the strong job report, it also again introduced possible rate hikes in the future, and that pushed the 10-year yield up pretty significant here, back to 4.53%, and also moving above the 10-day moving average. Next, we have the dollar index also moving up as well, very strong. Yeah, it's actually near a recent high here, so that is quite impressive. U.S. oil price didn't really make much of a move. It tried to come back up in the middle of the week, but it got pushed back again, down now below the red line once again. This is the second time in recent weeks here. Gold continued to go down here, so making new low. Silver also took a big dump, down 8% here. We are close to this black line, which is 200-day moving average. Looking at the grayscale Bitcoin Trust here, we also hit a new low here. The previous low was above 48, and now we are at 46.80. So Bitcoin has been under sell-off like this whole week, very significant. So on Friday again, the biggest sell-off in the tech area, Nasdaq. What are some of the analysts saying? Well, Eric Johnson mentioned that the SOX index is highest in second highest level in history. A while ago, earnings guidance kind of was bad, right? We also have Sienna as well, didn't turn out that good. And then we have Anthropics on June 4th, a blog post post that was calling for a global pause on the frontier AI development because it is now nearing a recursive cell improvement, and that can create risks, and so forth. And so that also interesting. I'm not sure how much that plays into the market. Yields are much higher. Tom Lee also mentioned source of funds are needed for SpaceX IPO, so they're coming from areas including the Max 7 stocks. Professor Jeremy Siegel saying, momentum traders are setting stops, as it move up the staircase, but now that it's coming down hard, it's taking the elevator down, so, a lot of, stops are being hit. Yeah. Next week we have Oracle earnings, and we also have the Apple, the WDC or developer conference and announcement there. So we'll see how that plays into this week. Hopefully they don't disappoint like last year, and but if that do, then it might not be good. Apple is still holding strong. We'll see that in a second here. We also have SpaceX IPO, I think, on Friday, June 12th. So that is coming out soon. So again, we'll see if that is, whether this liquidity, there's liquidity like they're being sucked up for that IPO. So we'll shift our gears to focus on the big caps, mostly tech stocks here. So first we're going to look at the SMH. This is the X Semiconductor ETF weekly chart here. It came down quite a bit. Like this is from the previous week close is down 4.8%. It's still above the red line significantly, and and you can see on the daily chart, it has come down to the 21 day. So it still looks, doesn't look that bad here. Yes, it's a pretty big drop for 2 days, 9% on Friday, and on Thursday it was 1.6%. But it's the fact that it actually, just undercut 10-day and 21-day on the same day, and then closing on the Friday at the lows is usually not a good omen, right? But yes, it is, coming down to this pink line here. It has to find support right away. If not, then we're probably heading down towards closer to the red line here. And we'll start with Broadcom because that was reported earnings here, and that was the big disappointment on Thursday that sparked a sell-off in a lot of chip stocks. It was down 13.6% for the week here, and that's not including from the top here. And you can see here on Wednesday, it did make a new high, closed pretty weak, right? Waiting for that result after hours. And then the next day, you can see the reaction to it was down 12%. And then the day after on Friday, again, we see a broader sell-off in the market, and that also caused it to down another 7.9%. And so overall, is pretty close to like, you can see here, all 52-week high is 22% now. So we are down 22%. It undercut the red line here, and this, definitely one of the first mega cap to reach that level, to that low. Another stock that suffered a big drop this week was Sienna Corp, which also report earnings. And you can see this week it down 15% from the previous week's close. And again, this one from the high here also top on Wednesday, and Thursday was also the reaction, and that also came off 23% now from the high here. So again, this one also below the red line. So those two stocks are definitely leading the downward momentum right now, and they already undercut the red line. And one thing to note, in both of these stocks, you can see like they're way above their black line here, which is 200 days. So the gap was pretty significant. Right now we're closing the gap. Even then, it still look pretty extended, right? So just something to be careful, be aware of. I have no idea whether this is going to become a bigger correction or this is just going to be a few days of pull back and bounce from here. But we do want to see it bounce from this line here, 50-day, because that's where most institutions will support a stock. If they don't support at that level, which it looks like right now, it doesn't. Because look at Friday, it didn't want to come back to the red line. It just closed at a new low, right? So that is the negative. Let's look at other stocks. Here's Nvidia also hitting the red line at this moment. pretty close to it. And so again, this one fell on the breakout right here on earlier this week. That was Tuesday, making a attempt here to come out, but it closed at the bottom of the range. And then from there, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it just continued to find resistance. And now we're at the red line. So again, same thing here. We need to see support level found at this red line here. If we don't, then easily this one will come down to the black line and so forth, and we'll see what happens next. Here's TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor, also pulling back to the 21 day. So this one looked a little bit okay, like compared to Nvidia. It's not down to the red line yet. Here's AMD, also pulling back to the pink line here. Again, that's the 21 day. So we're trying to find support at this 21-day moving average. Here's ARM Holdings. This one very extended and now is just undercut the 10-day. So this one is still quite above, even the 21-day here because of how far it has gone. This is Intel. Intel also pulling back. Now it is below the pink line, getting somewhere halfway mark between 21 and 50-day. Next, we have the iShares Expanded Software Sector here, ETF. This one is down 5% from previous week, but you can see this is a huge bar. Is that after it corrected more than that? So here's the daily chart. It says here off 50, well, no, that was probably from here, but from here you can see it came down to the pink line. So right now, again, very sharp. This one actually down 4 days in a row now. Yeah, after going up really strong the previous week, then this one gave back almost all the gains here. That's incredible. And now we're sitting near the pink line and we're trying to find support here now. Here's Palantir. This one was bouncing the previous week and then it pretty much gave up most of the gains from last week here. And now it is trading below all the short-term moving average once again. Again, very negative, right, for it to give up all those gains so quickly. Here's Microsoft. Looks almost identical. It went up really nice last week and this Monday, and then pretty much gave back all those gains again. So now we're back again, not just below all the moving averages here, and now we're very close to the 50-day red line. Here's Google. Google also been on a downtrend here, below all the short-term moving average. Came close to the red line 50-day, but it did find support at near that level. It didn't come all the way down, so that is surprising. And Thursday we bounced back, tried to reclaim the short-term moving average there. And then on Friday, look at that. It's only down less than 1%. So very interesting. We're seeing some sort of support right now, and if we come back above that short-term moving average, that'll be a good potential entry point there. Here's Amazon. Yeah, it broke below the 10-21 day here on Tuesday, Wednesday. It keep falling to the red line, and then on Thursday, look at that bounce was very weak. Didn't really make much progress, and then on Friday, following the market, it now undercut the red line. So yeah, so now we may be heading to the black line 200-day moving average. Next, we have Meta. Meta also was trying to find support near the short-term moving averages, but then Thursday it tried to come out, but it reversed. So that was the negative there. And then Friday we just followed the market and went down further. Look at how it undercuts near the 600 level. That was the support line for the last many weeks here. So that is very negative. So again, with Apple having their developer conference this coming week, people are looking for signs of AI-driven type of services, and we'll see how they do. It is holding probably the best out of all the mega caps, and it's near the high as well. It's just slightly below the green line 10-day. Pink line is down here, so it's still pretty far away. Of course, if they disappoint again, then it could start to correct too as well and pull back. Here's Tesla. This one fell on this recent try to break out here, and it fall back to the short-term moving averages. And then here, it looks like it's trying to find support, but again, it fell. And on Friday, it just undercut all those short-term moving averages and closed at the very near bottom of that range. And now we are below the red line, which is the 50-day. Netflix continue to go down. Although Thursday, Friday is trying to find support here at the lows here. So there's some sort of support. It just doesn't want to go down. Friday actually closed green as well again. So but it's still, we need to see a bounce here. But not going down doesn't mean it's going to come back up. So that's just something to continue to monitor. It is trading more tighter right now, so but it is still in a downtrend below the short-term moving average. So I hope next week we can maybe bounce back a little and test some of the short-term moving averages and see if they can find support at those level. For the week ending here, IBD changed the signal to 60 to 80% allocation. We have three distribution days on Nasdaq and S&P now. Obviously, Friday is a very severe one. We obviously seeing more distribution now than accumulation. Um, and also in the sector-wise, pretty much everything is negative in terms of the number of stocks being accumulated versus distributed. The only ones here is financial. So maybe we'll talk more about this in the growth stocks video next. But tech suffered the biggest drop here. We went from the strongest to the weakest. So unfortunately, yeah, many stocks have dropped quite a bit. So we'll try to go through some of those in the next video. Thank you for watching. Have a very good weekend.